Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. When I went to the UK Games Expo this year, one of my objectives, I had several, much to the annoyance of the friends who accompanied me, was to buy at least one game that is usually quite hard to get in the UK. I succeeded in that objective, and the game was Grindhouse 2nd Edition. This is a game for 2 to 8 players that I had wanted from the moment I first saw it. Ridiculous horror-themed concept, easy to learn and teach, quick to play, and beautifully presented. What's not to like? Unfortunately, being an indie title from Everything Epic, it's never gone into retail distribution in the UK, so when I saw the designer showcasing the game at the expo, I had to buy it. So I'm going to do a quick review today to say why I like this game so much and why you might absolutely hate it. The concept is straightforward enough. A group of people, you and your friends, have received invitations to a haunted house party from an enigmatic host who wants to play a little game. Each room in his mansion home has been converted into a death trap, and you will have to face up to 6 of these challenges during your stay. Survive and you win $10 million. And believe me, surviving is not easy, because this game is absolutely brutal. Arms will be severed, legs chewed off, rib cages ripped open and heads popped. So this is your fair warning. The game has a 17+ age limit on the box, and some of the images you will see in this video, while rendered in cartoon, still depict people being horribly maimed. To get started, place the game board in the centre of the table and draw 4 room cards if playing with 1 to 6 players, or 5 room cards if playing with 7 or 8 players. These rooms are placed face down on the slots on the board. Draw a final room card and place it on the last space of the board. Then each player gets a player board depicting their healthy and intact character. All characters are functionally identical at this point, so just pick the one you like the look of the most, or more likely, the one you hate the look of the least. You then take a stack of wound tokens matching your player board, because the main purpose of this board is to track how horribly injured you are, and therefore how many points you are scoring. You will notice the character art is divided into 6 sections, each labelled with 2 points. Make it out of the mansion uninjured, and you score 12 points. But you won't make it out uninjured. Throughout the game you will pick up wounds. Sometimes you will get to allocate those wounds yourself, for example a card may tell you to take 2 wounds. Other times you will be forced to wound a specific body part. For example, a card may tell you to take 1 wound on any limb, or sever 1 limb completely. Or worse. Whenever a body part takes 1 wound, you place a wound counter on the board. This indicates you have been injured and also reduces the points you are scoring for that body part from 2 to 1. If that same body part should be wounded a second time, you flip the wound counter and now there is no body part and no points. It is possible to lose both arms and both legs, plus take a point of damage to the head and chest without dying. But once you place a second wound on the chest or the head, that's lights out. Although, not always, game over. Additionally, each player is dealt 2 persona cards and 2 item cards, and they secretly select 1 of each. Item cards represent a variety of interesting and useful things that may save your life, or just your leg, or may let you screw with another player. The silver coin, for example, lets you increase or decrease the score of 1 dice roll by 1. While the pocket knife lets you stab another player because it's just that sort of game. Items are kept secret until you need them, and deciding when to reveal them is one of the few real decision points in the game. Persona cards are also kept secret. We will talk more about those momentarily. Finally, all the players roll their dice and the player who rolled the highest takes the first player token. Only there isn't a first player token. There's supposed to be, it's listed in the contents, but nope. If I'm playing with less than 8 players, I use one of the leg wound counters for an unused character. Having a first player leg that gets passed around just feels right for a game like this, and I get to make jokes about putting your best foot forward, which is a nice bonus. With a first player decided, it's time to begin, and playing the game couldn't be simpler. The first player flips the unrevealed room furthest to the left of the board and reads all the text out loud until they reach a stop point. A stop normally indicates a decision must be made based on the information available. Often the decision will involve picking a volunteer for something, but whether volunteering is good or bad is often uncertain. So you can be brave and step up to the plate, or you can hope someone else will. For example, here the team have entered a bedroom where there is an Iron Maiden instead of a bed. One volunteer must enter the Iron Maiden and then roll a dice to see what happens. If nobody volunteers, then the game becomes a social experiment as the group has to find a way to force someone into that role. And there is no fixed way of doing this. It's up to the players to decide if they should vote, dice off, or let the first player decide. This can certainly lead to some heated discussions as players vie for control of the situation. And that is perfectly in keeping with the theme. An argument among survivors about how to deal with a threat is very on brand for the horror genre. It happens in almost every horror movie. That moment where the group disintegrates, where allies become enemies, where uneasy alliances break down, and where distrust begins to grow. Having completed any instructions on the card before the stop, determining a volunteer where applicable, the first player reads the rest of the card and then everybody resolves the instructions. And I am not going to show you the bottom of this card. Grindhouse is absolutely at its best when you don't know what's going to happen next, when you are entering a brand new room and you don't know what the best course of action is. I mean, climbing into an Iron Maiden doesn't sound like a great idea, but what if the Iron Maiden is safe and it's the room that's trapped, resulting in injury for all those who aren't protected inside? Whatever happens, it's normally the case that you have to roll some dice to determine the outcome, and some players will pick up wounds. Some may even die. Dying is not the end. Those unfortunate souls will become ghosts that haunt the party for the rest of the game. After a room has been resolved, each ghost may have the chance to perform a special ghost ability based on the persona card they drew at the start of the game, and that's usually really bad news for survivors. Which is another really interesting aspect of the game. Grindhouse is not a cooperative experience. Everybody is out for themselves. Often players will hurt each other or vote for other players to be put in dangerous situations. You will regularly have the chance to pass wounds to players of your choice, or even outright kill them, and there will be rewards for doing so. However, kill players too early, and that will literally come back to haunt you. With all the traps in the house to deal with, the last thing you need is an angry spirit tormenting you. But after the ghosts have done their thing, the first player token moves to the left and the new first player reveals the next room. This continues until the final room, where all the survivors have to deal with one last special challenge. These are slightly different to the regular rooms as they will involve the whole gang, and often, the more survivors there are, the more chance you have of completing the challenge as you combine your efforts. For example, if the final room contains a hulking serial killer that you must fight, you have a much better chance of success with a large group than you would if you were a sole survivor. And again, that's another incentive not to kill off your rivals too early, and adds some nice nuanced balance to proceedings. You want to be the only winner. You want to make sure everyone else dies, but not too soon. You want them to die exactly at the right moment, probably right before or during the finale. And setting that up, especially when the game can be so chaotic, is certainly no easy feat. By the finale, some survivors may not even have feet. Spicing up this standard gameplay are the persona cards that were dealt out during setup. Generally speaking, the aim of the game is to survive and to have the most points, therefore the fewest wounds. But to ensure maximum chaos and to keep everybody guessing, every player also has a secret persona card that gives them a unique identity and 2 different objectives to play towards. The black text on the card defines an objective for while you are still alive, while the white text defines an alternative winning condition to play for if you are dead. It's a really clever and unique idea. And I don't want to ruin too many of these. They are all so brilliant and fun, and half of that fun is the surprise of a player suddenly revealing who or what they are and what their secret agenda is. But here's just 2 to show you what I mean. The stump persona is suitably unpleasant. Your character has a fetish of living without arms and legs, so at any point during the game you can reveal this card and instantly lose a limb of your choice. If you survive to the end of the game, you gain 14 points if you have no arms or legs. However, chasing down such a goal significantly increases the risk of death, and as we know, should you die, you become a ghost. At that point, the objective in black text on your persona card is no longer relevant. You can't score those points now, but you still have a chance of winning the game. As the ghostly stump, at the end of each room you can wound one surviving player's limb of your choice, and if any survivors are limbless at the end of the game, you win too. Yes, it is possible to have multiple winners. The survivor or survivors with the most points, plus any number of ghosts who achieved their ghost objectives. Here's one more Persona card which I think is really fun. The Psychopath. At any point you can reveal your Persona card and instantly kill another survivor. You gain 3 points for doing so, if you survive. At first, it may seem like these points are in the bag. It's far too easy to kill someone. But remember, they will come back as a ghost with a real beef with you. Additionally, you will have one less survivor to help you in the final room, and you have to survive for those 3 points to count. If you die, you lose any points you have gained, but now you may wound 2 different survivors' limbs at the end of each round. If a survivor has no limbs, you can wound their head. If there are no survivors at the end of the game, you win. The Personas really do add a lot to the game. They ensure every time you play you get a different experience. Everyone is always working towards different goals, and as Personas are usually secret at the start of the game, you aren't always going to know what those goals are. You won't know if the person sitting beside you is a psychopath waiting to end your life, or a martyr prepared to sacrifice themselves to prevent your death. And that creates loads of tension at the table. Playing to the Persona also has an impact on when or if players volunteer in certain rooms. A martyr may choose to volunteer often, hoping their recklessness will cost them their life. A coward may always shrink into the background, hoping someone else will put their neck on the line. And that in itself leads to interesting situations, where other players realise what's going on, so they start volunteering even if they don't really want to, just to prevent the players who do want to volunteer from potentially scoring more points. It leads to some really fun interplay, with players trying to outfox and bluff each other, normally with hilariously gruesome results. But that's pretty much all there is to it, so this game is not really much of a game at all. It's an activity. If you are playing through 4 rooms, you are generally going to have 4 choices to make, who should volunteer in each of those rooms. Plus you will sometimes get to decide when to reveal your persona or use your item, or who to harass or help if you become a ghost. The rest of the time, you are reading cards and rolling dice to see what happens. It is a largely chaotic affair, where you can absolutely be killed on your first turn thanks to a bad dice roll. In that regard, it reminds me very much of Dungeon Quest, and as that's my favourite game of all time, it's no wonder I enjoy Grindhouse. You do have a small amount of agency through persona abilities and items, but most of the time you are just along for the ride, and you shouldn't worry too much about winning or losing. You are almost certainly going to perish, and there's no use crying over spilt brain goo. This is more of a filler than Dungeon Quest though. The game is rarely going to last more than 15 or 20 minutes, which is perfect for a game that offers relatively few decision points. And as it caters for up to 8 players, I see it as more of a party game. I'm sure it would be a big hit if you were throwing an event for Halloween. You just need to make sure you have the right group. The over-the-top violence and black humour may be too much for some people. Ultimately, it's a gruesome, quick and random filler, where the focus is less on winning and more on screwing over everyone else at the table and laughing at the misfortunes that befall them. And if you are like me, you're going to have a good time. If you like more control over whether you win or lose, if you aren't going to see the funny side in dying on turn 1 through no fault of your own, if you're going to get upset because another player has decided to kill you for no reason, and if you don't see the appeal in leaving your fate to the wicked whims of a dice roll, you are going to have the most awful time. And while I can certainly see why this isn't everybody's cup of poison tea, I love it. It's not a game to roll out every games night, but on the right night, probably when there's a full moon, this is perfect. A hilarious way to fill half an hour. Heck, an hour, because you are almost certainly going to reset the game and play it twice. My only real complaint is that there just aren't enough room cards in the box, and once you have experienced a room, you will remember how best to deal with it. I want more. I really want some of the expansions listed on the back of the rules. Look at these: Cthulhu, Krampus for the Christmas party, and surely the creepiest of all, the Carnival. I would love to get some of these to have more variety for when the host next invites me to dinner. Maybe at the Expo next year. But that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.